let's talk about one of the biggest, most tragic contradictions on our planet, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, this is a country that, on paper, should be one of the richest places in the world. But for the people who live there, it's one of the absolute poorest. It's a story we call the Congo paradox.
Just look at this number, $24 trillion. That's not a typo. That's the estimated value of the minerals just sitting under the ground in the DRC. We're talking about a literal treasure trove of stuff our modern world runs on. Gold, copper, and especially cobalt. You know, the key ingredient in the batteries for our phones and electric cars.
And that brings us right to the heart of the mystery, doesn't it? If you're sitting on that much wealth, how can your people be suffering from such crushing poverty? How can a nation be so incredibly rich and yet so tragically, devastatingly poor? That right there is the Congo paradox.
To even begin to wrap our heads around this, we can't start with the big corporations or the government. Now, we have to start at the very bottom of the food chain. We need to understand what life is like for an artisanal miner.
And you know, this description, it's not some dramatic exaggeration. It's the daily, grinding reality for almost 200,000 people. These are miners, often with just their bare hands, digging these makeshift tunnels, sometimes literally under their own homes, just desperate for that little silvery glint of cobalt.
And the risks they take are just insane. This informal, unregulated work actually produces about 15% of all the cobalt in the world. But there are no safety standards. Tunnels just collapse. Miners are breathing in toxic dust with zero protection. They're getting shaken down by militias, and it's heartbreaking to say, but child labor is everywhere.
So, you have to wonder, who's buying all this stuff that's being dug up under these horrible conditions? All right, let's zoom out from the mud and the mines and take a look at the massive international players fighting over the DRC's resources.
And well, one player isn't just in the game, they're dominating it. Chinese companies, both state-owned and private, control a staggering 70% of the copper and cobalt industry in the DRC. That gives them a kind of leverage that is just immense, not just over the resources, but really over the entire country.
And this has kicked off a really interesting geopolitical clash. See, on one side, you have the West. Their investments often come with strings attached. Things like you've got to improve human rights or you have to fight corruption. The US can even boot countries from trade deals if things get too bad. But on the other side, you have China's approach, which is all about no strings attached. They offer these big infrastructure deals without getting involved in domestic politics, which you can imagine is pretty attractive to certain authoritarian leaders.
Okay, so you've got desperate miners on one end and powerful foreign countries on the other. But what's the engine in the middle? What's the mechanism that makes sure all that wealth flows out of the country instead of to its people? Well, the engine that drives this whole paradox is a deeply, deeply corrupt system.
To really get what's going on here, you need to know this word, kleptocracy. It's basically a government that's not designed to serve its people, but to make a few powerful people rich. And for decades, the DRC has been called a violent kleptocracy, where having political power is just a license to steal. It's really just a continuation of the same old colonial extraction, just with new faces.
And in a system like this, you always get these characters, these powerful middlemen. People like Dan Gertler. They called him the gatekeeper. He was super close with the former president Joseph Kabila, and he used that connection to broker these sweetheart mining deals for huge international companies. The deals were sold for way, way below market value, costing the Congolese people something like $1.36 billion in just 2 years alone.
So how does a deal like this actually go down? It's a pretty simple playbook, really. First, a guy like Gertler bribes a top official. That official then makes sure a state-owned mine gets sold for pennies on the dollar. Then the profits get funneled out of the country through these anonymous shell companies. And at the end of the day, the people of the DRC are robbed of billions. And we know this for a fact. Big firms have actually admitted in a US court that they paid bribes to DRC officials using exactly these kinds of middlemen.
So stealing the country's resources is one part of the scam. But how do you actually hide billions of dollars of stolen cash? Well, that's where the final piece of this puzzle comes in. A whole global system built to make money vanish.
And look, this isn't some wild guess. Official reports, like this one here from the World Bank, break down exactly how it's done. I mean, the methods are all over the place, from just smuggling suitcases of cash to using fake invoices, but the real superhighways for this dirty money are shell companies and offshore bank accounts.
So here's how the magic trick works. The corrupt official, the kleptocrat, sets up an anonymous shell company in a place like the British Virgin Islands. The company only exists on paper and the real owner's name is completely hidden.
Then they can use that untraceable money to buy perfectly legal things, like a fancy apartment or an office building in London. There was one case where criminals used companies in the Cayman Islands to buy an office block worth £94 million. It's just wild. The stolen wealth of the Congo is funding luxury lifestyles thousands and thousands of miles away.
So, we've got the miners, the corporations, the crooked deals, and the hidden money. But what's the real cost of all this? What's the ultimate price that people of the Congo are paying?
The price it's just almost impossible to comprehend. 5.4 million people dead. The endless fight to control these valuable minerals has fueled what some people call the deadliest war on Earth since World War II. This constant looting of the country is a main driver behind decades of just unbelievable violence.
And the horror doesn't stop there. The mining operations have poisoned rivers, ruined farmland. All those billions of dollars that were stolen, that was money that was never spent on schools, on hospitals, on roads. The country's infrastructure has crumbled. So this isn't just about lost money. It's about a stolen future for millions and millions of people.
And that's where this whole story comes right back around to us. That cobalt that powers our so-called clean energy revolution, the batteries in our smartphones, in our electric cars, the vast majority of it comes from the DRC. So the final question we really have to ask ourselves is this. Is the green, clean future we're all hoping for being built on a very, very dirty secret?